In this video, I'll give you a glimpse of how I make cheese. This is not an instructional video, but it will give you an overview of the process, and maybe it will spark an interest in making cheese. Or you might just come away with a greater appreciation for the cheeses you enjoy. So, let's get going. After my work surfaces and equipment are sanitized, I rinse the milk jugs of the debris from packaging and shipping so it doesn't follow the milk into my pot. Then I will slowly heat the milk to the targeted temperature before adding the starter culture. Now, there are many types of starter cultures, and the recipe will tell you which one to use. Because I'm using commercial milk, I'll also add calcium chloride to restore the calcium content, which is important to get a good firm curd. I let the starter culture hydrate for a few minutes before I stir it in for about 1 minute. As this culture ripens, it starts the process of turning the milk sugars, or the lactose, into lactic acid, which helps preserve the cheese, it contributes to the texture and the flavor, and it aids the curd development and expelling of the whey. It's important to monitor the temperature throughout the process, so you'll see me using 2 thermometers from time to time because I'm being overly cautious. Once the ripening process is complete, it's time to add the rennet, which coagulates the milk, separating the milk solids, which is the curd, from the liquid, which is of course the whey. You'll notice that I change the way I stir as I add the rennet. This is because at this point you do not want to over-agitate the enzyme activity. I use an up and down motion that is very gentle, and I stir for about 1 minute. Then cover and let set for the prescribed time or until I get a clean break. I let this batch set for 40 minutes, then I check the break and it wasn't firm enough, so I let it set for an additional 10 minutes. And now the break looks firm and it's time to cut the curd. Now, this step in the process will vary widely based on the type of cheese you make. The cheese I'm making is a German table cheese called Käse. It's a washed curd cheese that is mild and creamy and has a short aging period of 1 to 4 weeks. The curd is cut to about 1/2 inch, and there's a resting period then to let the curd heal, and then it is washed. To wash the curd, I remove about half of the whey and replace it with warm water, which lowers the acid level and gives the cheese its smooth texture and mild flavor. Then there's a final resting period of 45 minutes where I will stir it occasionally so the curd does not form a mat on the bottom of the pan, and then it's ready for the mold. I pour the curd and the whey into a mold that I've lined with cheesecloth, and I capture the whey in a large pot so I can make a batch of ricotta out of the discarded whey. The curd is now ready for the cheese press. And again, the type of cheese you make will determine the amount of weight and time in the cheese press. Typically, you will remove the curd from the mold, flip it and redress it, and return it to the press. For Käse, I will use 5 pounds of pressure for 5 hours and flip and redress the curd every 30 minutes for several hours. This flipping and redressing of the wheel helps the curds knit together evenly and makes for a really nice looking wheel of cheese. Then I'll increase the weight to 20 pounds for a couple of hours before I remove it from the press to rest overnight. It will then go to a saturated brine solution for 5 hours before it's air dried for 2 days at room temperature. And then I'll use my vacuum sealer to package the wheel, and then into the cheese cave it will go to age for 4 weeks. Now obviously this was a very simplified demonstration of the cheese making process, but maybe it gives you a glimpse of the time required and the science behind some of the nuances that determine the texture and flavor of cheese. While quick mozzarella can be made in about 30 minutes, traditional mozzarella will take 5 to 6 hours to make. Fresh cheeses like ricotta and cream cheese are ready to consume right away. Some styles of aged cheeses like Monterey Jack and Budicasa have a short aging period of 1 to 3 months, and others like Parmesan need to age 9 to 12 months. Labeling cheese as the original slow food and the art of cheesemaking complex are both fair statements, but home cheesemaking is fun and rewarding, and the fruits of your labor and patience is very tasty. To make ricotta, I heat the discarded whey to boiling and then throw in a splash of white vinegar, and almost like magic the ricotta curd develops. I put the curd in a mold and allow the whey to drain for several hours, and then with the addition of some garlic herb salt, maybe a few herbs, definitely some heavy cream, I'll mix that in, and now we have the best ever cheese spread for crackers. Or you could use it to make a salad dressing, or you could add it to pancake batter, or you could use it to make lasagna. It is so yummy. Whatever you do with it, you're going to enjoy it. While I'm waiting for the curd to develop, I'll go ahead and start a batch of cream cheese, which is a fresh cheese that is made by warming cream and adding a starter culture and letting it ripen overnight. You can see here that I put a heating pad on top of the lid for a few hours to keep the curd warm. In the morning, I put the massive curd in a flour sackcloth and I hang it for 24 hours to expel the whey and continue developing the flavor. I started with a gallon of half and half and ended up with half a gallon of probiotic-rich cultured cream cheese that has no added fillers, thickeners, gums, or preservatives.